So let's talk ladder safety. This simple tool's use is so obvious, a lot of times it is overlooked when it comes to what you should be checking prior to setting your ladder up. Let's talk about ladder components. These are your side rails. These are your rungs. This is considered your base section. This is considered your fly section because it slides up and down on a simple pulley system. These are your rung locks. And the feet, a lot of times, are referred to as dogs. You want to make sure, especially on a fiberglass ladder, that these rungs aren't splitting from the inside out. And when you're climbing the ladder, you want to ensure that the rung locks are actually in place and the ladder is locked out. When you're setting the ladder up, you want to make sure that you are setting it up properly. To set a ladder up properly, remember the 4-to-1 rule. For every 4 feet you go up, you have to come out from the base 1 foot. When you get your ladder set up, you have to have 3 feet extended at the top, and then tie that ladder off so it cannot shift left or right. A lot of times climbing up the ladder isn't bad, but when you come to get down the ladder, it's easy to get this ladder to slide, especially on coping. Anything metal, obviously it's going to slide on you, so you want to prevent that slide. Make sure the latches on the extension ladders are secured before climbing. The latches are considered the rung locks. It's these sections of the ladder here. A lot of times you'll get a defective ladder. It's because the rung locks won't stay locked. Extending the ladder sometimes gets really difficult because the ladders are exposed to the elements all the time. But you want to make sure that your ladder is functioning properly and that it's actually safe to climb. Never use a ladder with split or missing rungs. You want to make sure all these rungs, one, they should have an anti-slip surface on them, and 2, you can't have rungs that are bent, you can't have rungs that are missing. If you run into a scenario like that, you have to return this ladder to the shop so we can get you into a new one. Never use the ladder with grease or oil on it for obvious reasons. These rungs should have the anti-grip pads on them, but you want to make sure that the rungs aren't covered in mud or grease or something that's going to cause you to slip. Defective ladders that cannot be repaired on the spot, we don't repair ladders because we are not qualified to do so. We'll send these ladders back to Werner where they will get repaired properly by a qualified manufacturer. We can't do anything to these ladders to alter their original configuration. You don't cut ladders in half. You don't split extension ladders and use the slide or the base plate separate. These ladders have to stay together and intact. Make sure the ladder feet move freely and are slip resistant. So what I call the dogs, most people call feet. They have a spiked edge, so if you're in grass, you can flip them around, dig them in. They're not going to move on you. Really, the biggest concern I think with ladder use is kick out. You want to make sure that your base is proper, you're on level ground, a solid surface, and these feet are not going to kick out, that they actually have the anti-slide pads on the bottom of the dogs or the feet. The ladder, like I said, needs to extend 3 feet over the top of whatever you're climbing. You've also got to have a clear landing at the top. That is important. You have to have a clear spot to get off the ladder onto the roof. Make sure you don't have materials stored right where you set your ladder up. Setting it up to the 4-to-1, that's also important to determine the length of ladder you need. Just rule of thumb, if you have a 30-foot roof, you're gonna need a 42-foot ladder to get that proper 4-to-1 and extend 3 feet. Just remember that. All ladders aren't designed for the same task. Make sure you're using the proper ladder. It's a large OSHA citation if they catch you using the improper ladder. Follow safe work practices for climbing and carrying ladders. Keep at least one hand on the ladder at all times when climbing up and down. It's 3 points contact. One hand, 2 feet is 3 points. Don't carry materials up and down the ladder. Use a rope, use a Leatherman's bucket to hoist the materials up. It's very dangerous when you're trying to climb and carry materials with you. Keep the ladders away from power lines. Your minimum approach distance toward any line, regardless of its power, is 10 feet. If you're not sure that that power line is actually a utility power, you have to assume it is. Stay 10 feet away from the power lines. We can get them covered up to make your job safer, especially aluminum. Aluminum ladders really, in my place, don't have a spot in the construction industry. They're just too conductive. Get help. These ladders aren't light, so use the Walmart team lift, whatever, when moving these ladders. Don't try to always do it yourself, and be careful. A lot of times that's when they come in contact with power lines, guys carrying the ladders, not paying attention to what's above them.